Hello and welcome to the program UFO Warning. In this episode, we're talking about the Gofast UFO video and secret emails. That's correct. The Gofast UFO video and secret emails. Been some really interesting, strange, weird stuff coming out with these emails talking about this Gofast UFO video from back in 2015. Now, before we get right into that, just a little bit of background. If we go to AI, we find out that the Gofast video is one of 3 U.S. military infrared videos, that's along with FLIR, Tic Tac, and Gimbal, that became famous in discussions about UAPs or UFOs. It was recorded in 2015 by aviators from the U.S. Navy and later officially released by the United States Department of Defense in 2020. So we got this thing recorded in 2015, and then we have that whole kind of very weird situation where it was released. We'll get into that in a second. In 2020. So 5 years these things percolated around the Pentagon. Now, what the Gofast video shows, the footage comes from an F-A-18 Super Hornet, and it's using an FLIR, that's ATFLIR targeting pod. It's advanced targeting forward-looking infrared systems. Their infrared images are kind of this black and white, kind of gray colored, not super clear. Now, in the video, a small object appears skimming above the ocean. You can see this thing. It's just flying along there. Navy pilots can be heard reacting with surprise, saying, "Whoa, got it," and comments about its speed. Now, the targeting display tracks the object while showing telemetry like speed and altitude of the jet, sensor zoom settings, angle to the target, and range estimates. The nickname Gofast comes from the pilot's impression that the object was moving incredibly quickly. Now, they use the word impression here, and I'm not impressed with that. This is the pilot's observation. Now, we have these young men and women flying these craft that cost tens of millions of dollars, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars, and I would have to assume that we put the most competent people that we can find in those craft. So if they tell me they see something moving fast, I have to believe that they saw something moving fast. Now, the question is, why did it become controversial? Well, of course, because you can't explain it. Now, the initial interpretation, many viewers thought the object showed extraordinary speed. Clearly, that's what it looks like to me. It is at a very low altitude over the water. There's no wings or propulsion system on this thing, and it's an unknown or exotic technology, because otherwise, how would it be moving this fast over the water? Now, this has led to a lot of speculation about this thing being some kind of a top secret drone, possibly by another country, or an ET craft. I don't know how in the world this thing could be a drone doing the things that it's doing. Of course, what happens, this has been released to the public now for 6 years. It's been over 10 years since this thing was filmed. But as always, you come out with these skeptics. And I would really like to know how these guys make their money. Now, AI quotes Mick West. Now, I follow Mick West on Twitter. Nothing against the guy, but it's like he just goes through life with blinders on. And how he became the go-to guy on just dismissing any UFO sighting or any UFO video or any UFO evidence, it's beyond me. It's almost like he was placed there. That's what it seems like. I don't know. Maybe there's a market for this. It says the object may not be racing just above the water at a huge speed. Instead, it may be much further away than it appears. Parallax, that's apparent movement caused by the jet's own motion, can make a slower object seem extremely fast. Well, Mick West can say that it's just a optical illusion because the jet's actually moving away from this thing. But the pilot is seeing this in real time. The pilot of that fighter jet, their life depends upon whether or not they're able to put eyes on an object and determine whether that object's coming toward them, moving away from them, being able to predict its movement. So to say that a pilot is so incompetent that they think that a balloon, say, that's stationary in the water is moving 500 mile an hour or 2,000 mile an hour when it's actually just an optical illusion because they're looking out their cockpit window moving away from it. My question is, has Mick West ever flown an airplane? Has Mick West ever flown a fighter jet? Has Mick West ever been in a fighter jet going 400, 500, 600 mile an hour? I would really like to know that because Mick West seems to be an expert on pilot observation at subsonic and supersonic speeds. Has Mick West ever experienced those speeds? I would really like to know. I've talked to a couple former pilots. Honestly, they're pretty cool people. I mean, these guys are operating at another level physically above and beyond what you and I, the average American, is operating at. It takes a lot of skill. I've talked to one fellow who was a former Navy pilot. Really interesting conversation. Imagine the amount of adrenaline, concentration, and focus to land one of those jet fighters on an aircraft carrier, especially at night. You're talking about a whole level of commitment, a whole different kind of person. This fellow I talked to, I'll never forget, he'd been out of the Navy for probably 35 years. And of course, I'm just picking his brain about what it's like to be a pilot, what that experience is like, trying to really profile these kind of people. And he told me this story about how he was in, I guess, officers training maybe. This is where they're in the Navy, and he'd gone in after college, and they're in this flight training, whatever it is. I mean, someone can tell me what the proper name for it is. And one of the guys in his group, they're all eating, and this fellow had gotten a flu or something, and he was sick. But they're in their like initial training, so I guess it's like there's just no way he could wash out. He's eating this really not so tasty breakfast of eggs, scrambled eggs for breakfast, and the fellow gets sick right there, and everything he ate comes back up on the plate. Well, there was a rule. When you ate breakfast in the morning, you had to clean your plate, and if you didn't clean your plate, you're in trouble. And this guy, not wanting to get in trouble and risk getting kicked out of flight training, he ate what was on his plate. Yeah, everything. The guy said, we all looked at him, and we knew right then he was going to make it, and he did. Now, this is a level of commitment that these guys, and I suppose a few gals, put into their training. I don't think that I could eat what was on that plate after I had just had a terrible reaction from the flu. But that's the level of commitment that these guys have, that we're putting in those multi-million, $10 million, $100 million aircraft. And I have to think that they're very competent people. The ones that I've talked to are super competent, most of these guys on the outside, they're like highly skilled mechanics. They're very technical. I mean, if you were on a long road trip and your car broke down, these are the guys that you want with you because they can fix stuff. They're really smart dudes. So for Mick West to come along and say, well, this pilot fell victim to just being, he's having some kind of hallucination. It's just a mirage. The thing wasn't actually there. I mean, come on. Honestly, Mick, I don't think he has the skills. I don't think he has the brains to do what these guys do. So I found that whole line of reasoning very insulting, actually. Just based on my experience with the few pilots that I've met, what I know about the training these guys go through, what I know about what they do, what the human body has to go to fly one of these airplanes, and then to say, well, that guy didn't see what he thought he saw. Look, if they told me they saw it, they saw it. It's there in the video. I don't know what it is, but to say that this is just some sort of optical illusion, to me, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Now, it goes on down. They came out with all these different theories. It was a balloon. It could have been a bird. It was some kind of a windborne object. It was an ordinary aircraft. Yeah, it's an ordinary aircraft just flying around there a few feet off the ocean, right in the middle of these Navy aviation training exercises. Sure. So this whole thing has just continued on now for, well, going on 10 years. It's been part of the public uh, discussion now for well over 6. And a lot of these, what I would consider conspiracy theories, theories that it's a piece of paper flying in the wind. To me, that's a conspiracy theory. They've been allowed to percolate to the top of the media food chain here because there really hasn't been a clear-cut, open way of dealing with this stuff. Now, if we go on down the list a little bit, AI informs us that this case has remained famous because a New York Times article appeared in 2017. The To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science involvement in releasing the footage. Yeah, that's pretty suspect. And then, of course, you had the congressional hearings and creation of a formal Pentagon UAP office. Now, I don't think any of those things were done to shed light on what's happening here. To me, the New York Times wanted to sell newspapers. To the Stars of Academy Arts and Science, boy, what a mouthful there. Tom DeLonge's group, he has a long history of being involved with these deep state actors. That could have been anything from Tom's own childlike, innocent fascination with UFOs, or it could be the deep state using him to cover up what's really going on. The hearings on these UAPs, yeah, I think we have people in Congress that are generally interested in this stuff, but I think they've been bottlenecked. And as long as the papers that are being released on these FOIA requests are nothing but blanked out pages, there's nothing being disclosed. And then, of course, they talk about the creation of the Pentagon UAP offices. Just another way to bottle this stuff up and draw big money. I mean, did you just see where the lady that was working for the U.S. aid office funded by the government was making $259,000 or $279,000 a year? She's making over $200,000 a year, over $250,000, and she's complaining because after she lost her job, her most recent job offer paid $19 an hour. Well, if this is a subcontractor for the U.S. government making over $250,000 a year, what was Lou Elizondo making? They won't tell you. What was Kirkpatrick making? It's almost like this whole UFO thing's just become another way for politicians to create offices where high pay people can make a living. And what's their skill set? Lou says he got canned from working at ATIP, and he was so broke he had to live in a camper down by the river, apparently. And he was so poor, at one point he couldn't afford to get the black water tanks on his camper dumped, and he had to dig a sewage pit to dump all the sewage water into from his camper. Illegal, by the way. That's what Louis Elizondo told Ross Coulthard in an interview. You can look it up. If I've misinterpreted that, please correct me. Now, the bottom line is that the Gofast videos do show a real object tracked by Navy sensors, but a lot of the skeptics think that it's just, nothing to see here, just an illusion. As far as these things being UFOs or proven alien craft or anything like that, well, we don't know, but we do know that it's authentic military footage. That's the whole point. And so even if someone like Mick West can come along and say, well, this pilot misinterpreted everything, you've got the footage right there, Mick. And I want to know what makes Mick the expert on interpreting this military footage. I don't know. I see him on YouTube every day. Spending an entire day just post after post after post telling people, oh, this is not real, that's not real, chemtrails don't exist, this doesn't exist. It's like Bill Nye the Science Guy, who's actually not a science guy at all, but a comedian. The whole thing is just some sort of crazy psyops. Now, that's your background, just a little bit there to give you what this Gofast thing is. Now, I did want to get AI's take on how these videos ended up released to the public. So I ask it. It says, the release of Gofast and the related FLIR1/Tic Tac and Gimbal videos is tied to a very specific chain of events involving former government officials, journalists, and private efforts to push UAP issues into the public view, UFO issues. Now, here's the background. ATIP and Louis Elizondo, that's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. In the late 2000s, ATIP was a Pentagon program that examined unusual aerospace incidents. Well, that's what they were supposed to be doing. For all we know, they could have just been sitting around an office somewhere drinking coffee and shooting the breeze and drawing big six-figure government checks. Louis Elizondo says he worked in a leadership role connected with ATIP. His precise role has been publicly debated, but he is central to the story. He became frustrated that UAP reports were not getting higher level attention. According to Elizondo's account, he pushed internally for greater seriousness around military encounters. He eventually resigned from the United States Department of Defense in October 2017. Part of his motivation, he has said, was to bring the issue into public discussion. Well, we know that he also claimed that the Collins elite, these people that thought these things were demonic, had pushed him out of his investigative role and all that. Now it says Christopher Mellon's role. Christopher Mellon was another key figure. Mellon had long-standing national security credentials, became concerned about military UAP encounters, helped connect journalists, officials, and public advocacy groups, has been widely described as instrumental in helping move the Navy videos into public circulation. And a common telling is this: Elizondo pushed awareness from the inside. Mellon helped create an outside path for disclosure. Well, they're forgetting that part of the path where it is said that one person passes off to another in a Pentagon parking lot in a brown paper bag. They've left that part out. Allegedly, of course. Tom DeLonge enters the picture. Tom DeLonge had been trying for years to engage intelligence and defense insiders on UFO, UAP issues. In 2017, he co-founded To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science. TTSA became a vehicle combining public outreach, media strategy, UAP advocacy, former government insiders, including Elizondo and Mellon. This was crucial because it gave the story an organized public launch platform. But can you see the problem here? Can you see the chain of custody problem? It goes on, it says, number 4, the New York Times story, December 2017. A pivotal moment was the December 16th, 2017 report by the New York Times. The article revealed ATIP to a broad audience. It featured Elizondo, included reporting involving Mellon, and drew massive attention to military UFO encounters. This is often treated as a modern UAP disclosure breakthrough. I would actually treat this more as a modern UFO narrative control operation, because you have a current government employee, a former government employee, the public face on this, Tom DeLonge, who's connected 7 ways to Sunday with these deep staters. You've got the New York Times, of all people. Look up CIA Mockingbird sometime. And so you've got all these actors that are they're all like 2 degrees from the deep state. And we're supposed to trust them releasing this information to the public. It has controlled release all over it. And the chain of custody is murky. It's not a good situation. Now, the YouTube posting of the videos, it tells us, around the same period, the videos appeared through To the Stars of Academy and Science channels, including YouTube. And sequence often described videos were obtained/released through channels involving Elizondo and Mellon. So maybe that's where the parking lot paper bag scenario comes up at. I don't know. TTSA posted them publicly online. Don't forget they put their watermark on them. The reporting and YouTube releases reinforced each other. So you got this circular thing going on. And this is how many people first saw FLIR or Tic Tac, Gimbal, and Gofast. The YouTube posting was critical because the footage became directly viewable by the public rather than just described in reporting. Why couldn't they put these on a government website somewhere? Really? Now, why people say Mellon leaked the videos? There has long been discussion that Mellon helped get at least some of the footage to journalists and public channels. Mellon has spoken openly about helping bring the material forward. There you go. That has led many to credit him as a central disclosure figure. Well, okay, or maybe the central figure in this whole PSYOP. A Pentagon reaction and later official release in 2020, there's an important distinction. In 2017, the videos circulated publicly via media, that's with DeLong's outfit on YouTube. And then in 2020, the United States Department of Defense formally authorized and officially released the videos. That did not first put them online. It validated footage already circulating, and this often gets confused. So, did anybody get in trouble for releasing this government property? It seems like if that was you or I that got our hands on something that belonged to the U.S. government and released it publicly without permission, that we'd be jammed up. But nothing happened to these guys except they got more famous. The timeline, you have the 2000s to the 2017, what they call the ATIP era. And then October 17th, Elizondo resigns. That's what he says. December 2017, major press reporting, the TTSA launch, public video circulation. It's almost like this, to me, it seems like a very planned out, organized release of this stuff. 2017 onward, the videos spread widely on YouTube. And then in 2020, Pentagon official authentication and release. They have a simplified chain of events, AI does, and it summarizes this as a Pentagon concern. Elizondo pushes internally. Mellon helps move material forward. DeLong provides public platform. Major press reporting legitimizes story. Videos spread via YouTube. Pentagon later officially confirms footage. Isn't that convenient? Isn't that just so convenient? Louis just happens to be at the Pentagon, and he's so worried about people not being aware of this stuff. And he's got to tell you, he can't tell you certain things, though, because, he can't tell the difference between an irrigation circle and a UFO, but he's a UFO expert, allegedly. Now, Mellon helps move the material forward. Christopher Mellon, old money, old money, long-term government employee. This guy is as deep as it gets. Teaming up with Elizondo to release some UFO videos? Why? And then you have the rock star, Tom DeLong, who just happens to be connected to all these former military guys. Really? That's weird. And then we have the New York Times involved. Yep, put the seal of approval on it that I personally don't believe, but they're going to tell you the truth on this. And then the video spreads via YouTube. For some reason, Tom DeLong and his company, I don't think it's even a thing anymore, were able to take actual U.S. government property, put their watermark on it, and get millions of views. That's weird. Now, why this became controversial? The debates continue exactly how the videos left the government channels. Yeah, if we're to believe the story that they were passed off from one government employee to another former government employee in a brown paper bag, that doesn't seem right.